Hello and welcome to Artist Magic. I am your host, Megan Kuhar. I have hosted podcasts before. You know them if you've been on this feed before. It has been Fan Finder, it has been Creative Brand Sessions, and I've taken a bunch of time off. 2021 was a big year for me. I think it was kind of a big year for all of us, if big is the word that we want to use to describe it. Um, for me personally, it was especially a big year. I had my second baby who was born a month early, so like chaos ensued. We moved to our favorite neighborhood after trying to find a house in this insane market for like 2 years almost. Um, in sadder news, my dog, who was like my companion and best friend for many years, Toonie, died a few weeks after we moved. Um, she used to be always in the background of my videos a lot of times and on my calls. So it's just been an interesting transition. Moving and like being so happy about that, and then like having that sort of tragedy happen very shortly after. I also just transitioned in my full time job to a part time non teaching role. This is the first time I am not teaching any classes in 9 years. It feels huge to me. You probably are like, cool, whatever. But like to me, it's a really big deal. And it's even longer if you count the years that I taught private music lessons and group ensembles. So I've been doing that since I think 2006. So it's been a long time of me teaching. Um, of course, added to all of that, for all of us, it was just another year of COVID, totally not what we expected. There was remote teaching, there was tons of video editing for all the virtual concerts we had to put on at my job that I had to do a lot of work for, masking, struggling with my own anxiety, postpartum depression, all sorts of things, trying to get a toddler to like get on board with wearing a mask. And trying to raise a toddler without him having any friends because of COVID. It's just been crazy. It's been a year. Okay. So I'm sorry I've been gone, but I'm so glad to be back. I am back. I am present. I'm ready to share my next phase of my business with you. Things haven't really changed, but they've also really changed immensely. It's kind of both and. So, overall, the core of my message is the same, and that is musicians and artists embracing entrepreneurship and changing their outcomes. That's what I've been focused on for the past decade, and it's what I continue to focus on now. I'm still talking about those things, but I've grown and evolved as an entrepreneur and as a human. And the way that I share that content has changed many times. And it's for really great reasons because as I kind of explore my own entrepreneurship, I realize what's important as you sort of explore yours. So for me, I started off like very much a perfectionist, very much worried about what things looked like and how perfect the video looked and all of those types of things. But over time, I sort of started realizing, not over just time, but over experience, I started realizing what is actually really important. And we're going to get to that. But pivoting is what I want to talk about today, amongst some other things. And, I've pivoted several times. If you just count my podcast title, it's been three different titles so far. And that's not something that I'm ashamed at all to admit. In fact, I celebrate the pivot. For me, pivoting is kind of the whole point, right? Your business is not something that needs to stay stagnant and repetitive because hopefully you're not staying stagnant and repetitive, right? I think that you're here to be with me and I'm here to be with you. And I don't think you really care what I call my podcast. You just want me to share stuff that's valuable to you, right? And you might not even know what you need. You just know that you need something. So I just really care that my podcast represents what I want to talk about and what I'm here for and what I think is important as artists and musicians and entrepreneurs. So that's why I've changed the name again. And I will share more about the name Artist Magic in a bit. I'm very excited about that name. It's like my favorite one yet, 100%. So, first of all, a bit more about pivoting in general. Okay, do I know that the general majority of business gurus agree that a successful podcast has to be consistent, release episodes at the same time every week, you know, just kind of have consistent appearance and content and things like that? Yes, I do know that. I do know that, you know, for the most part, if you want to have a successful podcast, there's like steps you want to follow. Is consistent release of episodes and consistent like vibe and consistent everything something that I can like energetically and practically commit to at this season of my life? No. And also, yes, it wouldn't be possible at all if I didn't have the help of my new intern slash assistant, Maddie, who's editing this video as we speak. She is here to do all of my transcriptions, my editing, social media graphics, and clips and things like that, and publishing for the podcast, um, which is amazing. I'm so psyched to have that help. It is not something that I would have been willing to give up doing myself before. No, I tried. I tried having editors. I tried having people help me. By no fault of their own, it did not work, and it was because of me. I was not willing to let go of the reins in my business and let go of control in my business for the longest time. Uh, and it didn't have anything to do with the people that I was trying to like hand over control to. It was 100% because I was worried about the wrong things. I needed the audio to be perfect to my specifications. I needed to have the exact right like tone and style of speaking, and like I was too embarrassed for other people to hear it and have to like listen to it so intimately and record and edit it. Um just so many reasons why I wasn't willing to let go of that control. And all of it was because I did not feel confident in myself at all. Like I did not feel any sort of self-worthiness or enoughness within myself. I was operating out of anxiety, and that's not really happening anymore. Um, you know, I am working on constantly peeling away the layers of myself that some of them I don't even know are there, and others I've been more aware of as I continue to like dive deeper into intuitive business and channeling content and all of those things, which we will talk about all that stuff in another episode. Yeah, so Maddie's helping me, and I'm not only like willing to let somebody help me, I am psyched to let her help me. So there's going to be just a lot more that is going to happen that I could not do on my own because I have two kids, and now I have a part-time job instead of a full-time job, but it's still a lot, and I have my business. So there's just a lot going on. So it's just I'm psyched to give it to somebody who I think has my same vision. So I'm very psyched. Even with Maddie though, there may be times where I just like don't post a podcast. I don't know. Like I have no idea how this is going to work out. Um but that's just how things are going to roll. Like I know that I am going to put forth the right energy to this project. Um but I just don't know what that means every week, right? So that's how things are going to roll. But let's talk about like kind of a couple things that I want you to be aware of. Since you're already here, I know you're probably already subscribed or you will be soon. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. um, but I do ask that you take a moment to also subscribe to my email list. So I want to make sure that you don't miss out when I do post updates, since, you know, for some reason there might not be something showing up on your podcast feed, or it might come out late that week or something like that. I just want you to know when I have updates, when I have sales, when I have new episodes, when I'm launching products, and all sorts of things. Plus, you will get a free hypnosis download if you sign up for my email list. It is called Safe to Be Seen. It is a wonderful tool for those of you who feel like hesitant to share your life online, because you're just sort of like you feel vulnerable, right? So that is what this hypnosis is for, and you will get it for free if you sign up for my email list, and that is at megan-kuhar.com/sign up. Um, I'm really embracing email these days. I love the platform, and it just feels just really intimate and important. So, um, okay, so about this podcast flow. I have a rough idea of the topics I want to cover in this season of my podcast, which would be season 5. We are just picking up where we left off. This time, instead of sort of week to week, I'm figuring out topics week to week. I am going to make an outline of the whole season before I start. In fact, I already did. But as always, I'm happy to pivot if I find I need to change course. Um, but I just want to have an arc of what I want to talk about so I don't feel overwhelmed with coming up with ideas in real time. Other than that, we're just going to flow. We're going to jam. We're going to flow. This is an improv session. I plan on not being perfect at this. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that my hair is like out of control right now. And this is like I'm like looking good for right now. Like there might be days where I show up to record in my PJs. Like I can't promise that I'm going to be fully um like perfect in every way like Mary Poppins when I show up for this recording. I am a mom and this is life, right? But I promise that I'm going to bring the right energy, and I promise that I'm going to just be my full self for you all. So, I will say, I will totally admit that not being perfect, I admit that that is the opposite of what I would say was important 2 years ago. And that's why I didn't want to let go of control, because I needed it to be perfect to my standards, right? I can tell you right now that there are reasons why I believed that branding was kind of the first thing you needed to do, right? Like my podcast used to be called Creative Brand Sessions. That was what my YouTube channel was called. And many of you are watching on YouTube. So, you know, I used to think branding was like number one. First thing you do is come up with your message and your fonts and your colors. Like that was what was important. And to be honest, I no longer think that that's true. I just don't. I don't think that's true. And it's because I've grown, but also because I've uncovered some really, really deep rooted wounds within myself that I've recently been able to heal or start to heal that's centered around self worthiness and enoughness. And they were manifesting by creating perfectionism in my work. I wanted to like constantly prove to people that I knew what I was doing. And I did that by having perfect audio and, a great camera and the best colors and fonts and like consistent branding and all that stuff. That's how I proved to others that I was worthy of them hiring me. And spoiler alert, it didn't work. So I realized that that is where this was coming from. So, yeah, you're going to hear a lot of this type of content, this healing, inner child work, intuitive business, channeling content, no more structure, no more severe structure, at least, no more formulas, no more toolkits, no more. Okay, no more. So please stick around, hopefully. I do want to talk about the new podcast name, Artist Magic. I kind of have this subtitle in my head for the podcast, and that is channeling your artistic energy to make magic happen in your life and business. All right, so I'm going to tell you right now. If you're not interested in hearing about spirit led, trauma informed, intuitive coaching, this is not a podcast for you. And I'm sorry now if you resonated with me before and no longer resonate with me now. I'm sorry, and that's okay. So, the unsubscribes I'm expecting, and I'm totally okay with it. One thing I've finally embraced about myself after decades of hiding it, and I'm still working to embrace it, but I'm uncovering it slowly, is my own spirituality. And it is not a conventional Christian-based mindset. Um, you know, to get on the like vulnerable train, I grew up Catholic. This really created some wounds within me. And, I still have really good relationship with my parents, but there's been stuff that like I have totally ignored or like hid about myself, um, that I felt like I had to hide because they wouldn't approve, right? And that's not their fault. Like they were just following their own beliefs. Like I would never tell somebody to not subscribe to their own beliefs. Like, I mean, that would be mean and wrong to do. Um, so I have no like animosity towards them at all. I have a wonderful relationship with them. But I'm still healing from that time, from how I interpreted their sort of like take on religion, and how they wanted to have me have the same take. Um, I find it hard to even refer to like God. So um, I certainly don't want to be a part of any religion in particular. I'm afraid to be um, a little bit more open about it because I feel like if I don't say God, instead I say like the universe or spirit or something, um, I'm afraid there's going to be like Christians that are like, oh my God, or Catholics that are thinking that I'm evil or something. But like, no, this is just my language for the same thing. I'm finding more and more that I have a ton in common with my parents, and they're just through different lenses. Our like belief systems are through different lenses, but they're very similar. So, um, yeah. Whew. So, I'll probably share more about that in the future. I'm sure I will. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about the word intuitive, and gonna like continue on this vulnerable train for a little bit. So, I would say that I consider myself an intuitive, which means I channel my messaging and it comes to me from some other place. Like, I don't know if you've ever read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, um, but it's similar to that. Like, the creativity is like this tangible thing that you can like grab from the air and it comes to you. I don't really know where it comes from. Does it come from like some, muse, or does it come from my guides, or does it come from angels, or like the spirit realm or the universe, or like a god or something? I really don't know. I'm not sure. But what I've really done more of lately is diving into that intuition to run my business. And I, in turn, don't care about like tech trends or algorithms, or platforms people say I need to be on, or trends that are going on. Um, if I hear a message that I need to share, I'm going to share it, and I'm going to share it without thinking twice because I believe in my own magic, and I believe in my own ability to subconsciously heal myself and others, to help manifest my own outcomes and to help others manifest their outcomes, to dive deep into the spiritual realm, to create my reality. That's what intuitive means to me. You know, a lot of times people call themselves psychic, or like witchy, or um, I don't know, like healer or medium, things like that. Um, I think all of the above applies to me because all that is to me is magic, artist magic, intuition, creative energy. And I am trying my best every day to become more and more in tune with my own. So, um, I just believe that the more I learn about like psychic people and like witchcraft and things and mediums, is that the more I realize is that it's really just manifestation and subconscious healing. And those two things I've done before and will do again. So, yeah, there's no magic besides the magic that we can generate within ourselves. That's kind of how I see it. Um, and that is magic. So that's why I wanted to call this show Artist Magic. Um, you know, most people in the world do not have the wherewithal to uncover this like deep rooted belief that will transition to wounds that create their realities, which they aren't happy with. When you are able to kind of unearth that and peel it away, then you are speaking to your subconscious, you are healing. That is nothing short of magic. So I chose the title Artist Magic because I believe my role as a coach is to help more artists discover this magic within themselves. We are already so magical as creatives. We literally generate energy. We make things happen out of thin air. We manifest realities from our minds, right? This is all already within us, and it comes out as we create. But often, when we try to step outside that flow of creation or that like norm of creating art, we lose sight of our artist magic. So things like promotion become chores, marketing becomes inauthentic, social media is a drag. Even talking about our work face to face with someone is embarrassing. I just got off the phone with somebody earlier this morning who's a role model and mentor of mine. And they said something in passing that was basically like, yeah, I don't want the spotlight to be on me, but blah, blah, blah. And like, this person has such an intensely important message to share with people that like it actually breaks my heart thinking that they don't want the spotlight on them. Because that's the magic. Like having that ability to share your message with others is magical. And so, yeah, that's what I want to talk about here. I'm going to tell another story. So I have a dear friend, Sarah Weiss. Many of you know me because of my guest spot on her podcast called Earth, Love, Spirit. But we're friends in real life. We live about 25 minutes away from each other. And she's a spiritual mentor of mine. And she has been doing this work for over 40 years. So she knows a lot. And I once asked her how I can learn to sense energy in others and in myself. And here's what she told me. She said, you know how you sit with your bandmates and you all take a breath and start playing at the same time? That's energetic alignment. You're already doing it. That blew my mind off. How, as musician, I'm a musician, so this is the lens I'm gonna look through right now. But if you're an artist, think about this, right? How can I tell that in an orchestra, and I'm in percussion, so I'm in the back row, right? All I see is backs of heads. How can I tell that the person like over there 20 feet away is about to play a note on their instrument? Right? Even if we're sight reading and I've never heard the music before, how can I tell that they're about to do that? How can I feel, if I'm on a crammed stage playing with a band and like I'm about to have an entrance and I need to know what is going on over there, but I can't look at it? How do I know? How do I feel that? Right? If you're a dancer, how do you feel the person next to you on stage without actually seeing them and move in alignment with them? If you're an artist, how can you tell what colors fit right next to the other colors on the canvas? How do you know what color to choose next? If you're a photographer, how can you take that photograph and actually perfectly capture a person's essence in a singular moment? That is artist magic. That's how you do it. So all we need to do is use that same magic to attract people to us to perceive our work. In the past, I've talked about this. I've talked about this act of, attracting people to us to perceive our work. And I've used words like branding and messaging. But the word branding in particular, I don't ever want to use that word again. So it's funny because I used to call this creative brand sessions, right? To me, it's like, no, never use the word brand again. And there's a few reasons. I want to remove that word across the board. The words branding no longer align or resonate with me. And that's one reason. And by resonate, I mean like they don't ring the frequency that I'm feeling, right? they don't. I hear the word branding and I'm like, wrong. The second reason is because Every single time I have spoken to a musician or an artist and told them that they needed to build a brand, there was a guttural reaction to it. And I have spoken to hundreds of artists and musicians, hundreds. Between the 9 years I was teaching in a conservatory of music, teaching these concepts, several classes per semester, to the coaching clients I've had, to the friends I have that are artists and musicians. Every single time when you talk about branding with an artist, they have a cringe. Why fight that cringe is my other thought. That's reason number 2. There is something there. And the reason why is not because having the right like visual cues and like communications and messaging and like a logo that makes sense and colors. It's not that that stuff's not important. It's just that that stuff is a manifestation of a lack of self-worthiness and enoughness. So when we focus on that stuff, we're sort of jumping the gun ahead to step like 30 before we even need to be there. Because step 1 through 29 is all about finding yourself and understanding more about your own motivation and your own reason for doing this. And I promise you, because again, hundreds of artists I've worked with in this capacity, many artists don't know that answer. So this is why I no longer want to use the word brand. And instead, I'm replacing it with the word ikigai. Ikigai. I came across this word about midway through 2021, and it totally shifted how I explain everything in my business. Ikigai is a Japanese word, and it's one of those words that doesn't have like a direct translation, but it's basically an amalgamation of 4 different components of like the human experience. And that is passion, mission, profession, and vocation. Okay. And I'm going to talk more about these. Hold that thought. Okay. But the 4 different sort of pieces of ikigai are passion, mission, profession, and vocation again. So essentially, being in the state of ikigai is when you find that thing that you love to do, that you're good at doing, that the world needs, and that you can be paid for. When you find the thing that you love to do, that you're good at doing, that the world needs, and that you can be paid for. That is what ikigai means. And for us, that's art, right? But how often do we forget about things like profession and vocation? Those are the 2 areas where people need it and we get paid for it, right? How often do we forget about that when it comes to making our art? Because we focus so much on what we love and what we're good at, or sometimes not even what we're good at. We just focus on what we love, right? That we forget to angle it so that others need it and that we can get paid for it. So when it comes to like selling, we feel terrible because of a lot of reasons centered around we don't know the answers to why people need this thing, and we feel wrong trying to describe it because it doesn't feel right to ask people to pay us for something that we love. But the reason why it doesn't feel right is because we're missing the vocation. We're missing why people need it and what they like the world needs from us. So if you were centered around your ikigai, you would feel like it was your honor and duty to make art and sell it to people. Because that's not selling out. That's not selling, that's serving. Okay. I also recently learned another word. Well, not a word, but I learned a little bit more about language. The etymology of the word sell. And it comes from a Norwegian word, selge. I totally apologize to any Norwegians who are listening to this, but I have no clue how to pronounce this word. It's selje, which basically translates to giving or serving. So the word sell comes from the concept of giving and serving. What if we turned, I hate marketing, or I hate selling into I love serving. Or even better, a neutral. I hate marketing into I serve others with my art. Wapow. That's incredible. And when we focus more on this concept of ikigai and serving instead of our brand, we could feel passionate, we could feel purpose driven, we could feel like we are serving others. And like I said, like it's your honor and your duty to do that. It takes away that feeling of putting on a pretty face to make others like us, right? Okay, so what happens when we don't have all of those blanks filled in on the like ikigai Venn diagram, right? The passion, the mission, the profession, the vocation. Like we don't have the answers to all of those. So many artists I know are like, I want to play music. Okay, so let me walk you through this because this totally happens in my classes. Um, I'll ask the question like, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, I love to play music. Okay, why do you love doing it? Well, I just feel like I feel like myself when I'm doing it. I feel like this is like what I'm meant to do and it just feels right. It just feels like my mission in life. Okay, cool. Like what do you want others to feel when they hear your music? Inspired. Okay, inspired. And this is where teacher Megan's like, inspired for what? Inspired to do what? Why inspired? Inspired is like a totally vague word. It means almost nothing. I mean, it's kind of just like a blanket term for they're going to have like the feel goodies in their chest, right? But like why? Like what do you want them to feel good about? Themselves? Do you want them to feel good about themselves? Do you want them to feel good about like taking action towards something? Do you want them to feel good about like their family or their loved ones? Do you want them to feel like they're part of a community? There are so many things that you can inspire people to do or feel, and all of those things are very valid. But if you don't know the answers to those, like, ain't nobody gonna be inspired to feel anything. Or they're just gonna be like, oh, that felt really good. And then they're just gonna like move on. Or they can't like pinpoint what it is, right? You need to know like the energy that you are bringing so that you can sort of like transmit that energy to the people that are receiving it, right? So that is where like filling in those four pieces of the puzzle of your ikigai is like so freaking important. Okay? So that is why um I am focusing my next upcoming masterclass on the concept of ikigai. So, if you didn't know this, I've been hosting live masterclasses. I did a few already since October. And they are group Zoom calls where I have basically like a small presentation and then we go through like processing together and things like that. So it's kind of my chance to like teach again, but also for group coaching. And added into that now is we will go through hypnosis together because I'm now a hypnotherapist. So there will be a related hypnosis experience. There will be a presentation about Ikigai. There will be like active, what is it called? Participation. Like thinking of words is hard. There will be participation, like we'll have some prompts and you'll respond to stuff. And then there's going to be some processing time. And what I've just been really enjoying doing is just like sharing and holding space for others, so that we all can feel like we are in a community, that we are sort of part of an experience. So this masterclass is taking place today, the day that this podcast comes out, January 21st at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, here's the thing. If you listen to this too late, you will still be able to purchase the replay of the masterclass. And I'm also announcing that if you want to be a part of the masterclass, but you're kind of like not sure about sort of buying like a video, I would recommend you join my brand new Patreon. So I have a Patreon now. It's called Artist Magic with Megan Kuhar. And it is a community where we will be um, going through these master classes together. So any live master class that I do will be included on my Patreon. I will also do monthly oracle readings. Some tiers will get custom readings, one card readings. Some tiers will get access to like voting rights for topics of master classes. So I will have like maybe a list of a few things, or I'll ask you for ideas for things to do master classes on. And yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I cannot wait to build and nourish this community that corresponds with my podcast. So, um, for all of that information, just head to megan-kuhar.com/podcast and you will see a link to my Patreon as well as links from the um, for the upcoming workshops that are coming up. So if you just want to purchase the workshop but you don't want to be on the Patreon, you can do that. But it is cheaper to be on the Patreon. So yes, all right. That's it for today's episode. I'm looking at my notes. That's everything I have. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Please let me know what you thought of the podcast, either by reaching out to me on Instagram or if you are watching this on YouTube, leave a comment, click the like button. Make sure you subscribe so that you can get all the new episodes that come out every Friday. And yeah, I'm so psyched. I can't wait to continue and be with you and share our artist magic together. All right. Thanks.